If you're new to Illustrator, probably the most intuitive tool for drawing stuff on the page is the pencil tool. So I want to show you the pencil tool and the two tools that come with it, the smoothing tool and the path eraser tool. Right now I have a plain blank document open where you can see here that I'm in CMYK mode. Doesn't really matter right now if you're in CMYK, RGB, or what kind of document profile you're using. And that's true for much of this chapter. Let's just make sure that we're using the default Essentials workspace. So back up at the top here, I'm going to click Essentials and Reset. I have my rulers turned on. You probably find it easier if you have the rulers turned on, but that's really not important that much anyway. And I want to zoom in maybe to the top of the page. So I'm just going to get my zoom tool and zoom in kind of like that. You see how it auto scrolls? I really find that irritating, but there's no way to turn that off. Okay, so let's go and get the pencil tool. Now the shortcut is the letter N for no, I don't want another tool. I don't know, but that's right over here. And if you click and hold, you see there's a little triangle showing you the flyout. So there's the pencil tool. We'll do that first, and then I'll show you these other two. So let's take pencil. Now this tool works really great if you're using a drawing tablet, like a Wacom tablet or something like that. Now, drawing with a mouse might seem a little difficult, but that's why this tool is really so neat. Let's just draw a curve, anything at all. I'm just going to draw a squiggle like that. And before I release the mouse button, you see it's really kind of jagged there. I did have some coffee about an hour ago, and I'll let go of the mouse button, and you see it's smoother than you might expect. Now you can see the anchor tools that I talked about in the previous lesson, and we're not quite ready to edit those yet. We will later in this chapter. But let's just try another one. You can just kind of draw another squiggle. In fact, even don't be afraid of being kind of jagged. You see the way I did there. And it's going to be jagged, but here's what's really neat about it is, let's say you didn't do that on purpose. You say, gee, I really want to draw that a little smoother, a little straighter. The pencil tool lets you redraw a line segment without having to go and erase it and delete it first. Try this. Put your mouse pointer anywhere on the end of your line segment, and you see my mouse pointer, the pencil is right on the line. It doesn't even have to be exactly on the line, as long as it's somewhere in the neighborhood. And just kind of draw, you see how I'm doing like a substitute line? And look at that. It just redraws for you automatically. Illustrator just kind of understands what you're doing. Let's say here's a little peak. I don't want that peak. I want that to be a little more smooth, a little more curved. So I'm just going to do something like that. And it redraws for me. Now, when you're drawing, you might wonder, okay, how do I know if I'm going to be drawing a new line or if I'm going to be drawing a continuation? Well, right now you see my mouse pointer has a little star in it. And that's because the mouse pointer isn't very close to the line. But when I bring my mouse close enough to the line, you see that star goes away. That means Illustrator is thinking, okay, you're close enough to the line that you're going to just sort of draw a substitute, kind of like that. And you have some control over this. Double-click on the pencil tool itself in the toolbar. And now you've got these options. So it's telling you first here the fidelity, how closely will Illustrator match what's on the screen to what you're drawing, and how smooth will that be? Well, I want to boost this up a little bit because I'm just being really way too rough. And here you have a few options. Will your pencil strokes be filled or not? You see right now I have no fill, it's an empty fill, so you could do that if you like. My advice is generally don't keep them filled because it's going to be a lot easier for you to see what's going on if Illustrator isn't putting color on top of your path. Then it just gets kind of hard to see. And keep selected. And you notice that, let me move this out of the way, that when I finish drawing the curve, it remains selected so that I could edit it. Maybe if you don't like that, maybe if you just want to draw a whole bunch of them, boom, 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 and not leave them selected, you can deselect that option. And that edit selected paths. That's just what we were doing a moment ago. And how close does your pencil need to be, what we're just talking about? So within 12 pixels. So that's 12 pixels of the screen, regardless of how far you're zoomed out or how closely you're zoomed in, with whatever view you are using. If your mouse pointer is within 12 pixels of the line, then you're going to be editing it. Now, if you make all kinds of changes here and you forget what the defaults are, you can always hit reset. But I'm not going to do that because I want to leave this here. Maybe I'll boost the smoothness a little bit more, 35%. Click OK. And now I'll just draw another segment here. And you see that's maybe a little smoother. And even if I'm kind of a little jagged over here, it still smooths it out. Now, when you're drawing your lines and you decide, okay, I want this to be a little smoother, you don't have to redraw the line. That's what the smoothing tool is about. So let's click and hold on the pencil tool there and bring up the smooth tool. By the way, if you want to click on this little arrow here and bring this out as a pop-up, that's quite all right. Whichever way you want it is fine. Just remember the smooth tool is the middle one here. Now, I've got this little jagged area here. Maybe you have another jagged area. Depends if you're a better illustrator than I am. But the first thing you need to do is make sure that the line is selected. So I'm going to go back here to the selection tool. So if you're going to be switching back and forth, let's say between selecting a line and editing the line, just kind of remember the selection tool is V, and the smooth tool doesn't have a shortcut, but the pencil tool is N. So if you're going to switch a lot of that back and forth, you can just remember V and N, V and N. It's up to you. Anyway, so let's get the selection tool here. I'm going to select the line that I want to edit. I'll get the smooth tool, and I'm just going to kind of trace on this line here. And you see it smooths out a little bit. I'll trace a little bit over here. And you see I don't really have to be all that exact on the line. As long as I'm somewhere in the neighborhood, Illustrator picks up what I'm doing and it smooths that out. Maybe I'll try this line over here. Again, I'll just hit V for the selection tool, click the line, get the smooth tool back, and I'm going to trace on there. Now, if you want, feel free to pause this video and play with it a little bit. I'll be here when you get back. I'll be playing with my lines there. And by the way, the smooth tool also has some options that you might want to set. I'll double click the smooth tool. And this is kind of like the first two items that you saw with the pencil tool, is what kind of fidelity and what kind of smoothness. And if you forget what the defaults are, you can always reset that. But I'm okay the way it is. So that is the smooth tool. All right, now let's take a look at the eraser tool. The eraser tool will do pretty much what it sounds like. So you could either, if you have the flyout, you can choose it here, or if not, you can click and hold and get the path eraser tool there. And also you want to make sure that the line is selected. So if I want to erase part of this line here, I'll just kind of erase like that. Oh, but did you say you want to erase in the middle of the line and not necessarily one end or the other? Well, you could do that too. Again, make sure that you have line segment selected and just kind of erase in the middle of a line segment, and you've just broken it in two. Now, they're still joined. I mean, they're not physically joined, but it's still one object. In fact, if you get the selection tool, you notice that it's one object, and if you click on one, though, now it's separate. But you can still treat it as one if you select both of them. And later in the course, we'll talk about joining and grouping and unjoining. Let me deselect that. I'm going to select this one here. I'll go back to the path eraser tool. And there's really not a heck of a lot to it. You could just erase really any part of the line segment that you want. Now, once you're done editing these line segments, whichever tool you have, let's get the selection tool back, you can go and color them. So for example, I'll go and I'll get the stroke symbol here, and I'll get the swatches fly out, and let's say I want those both to have maybe a dark blue like that. Let's make them a little wider, select them here, and instead of 1 point, maybe I want them to be 6 points. Maybe I decide that I want this one to have a yellow stroke, something like that. So the pencil tool and the smooth and eraser tools, these will not give you absolute accurate fidelity, and they're not meant to do that. The pen tool will do that, and we'll look at that in a little bit. But if you're looking for maybe kind of a natural feel, especially if you're using a drawing tablet, I think you're going to like the pencil tool.